Creativity and collaboration often go hand in hand, yet for this to work well in modern video productions, there are many technologies working behind the scenes to bring the latest films and television shows to life. In this episode of Beyond the Screen, we will find out more about a leading technology company who provide powerful solutions to solve problems media production crews will encounter on their journey. This advanced cooperation happens behind the screen with EditShare. So we're here with Andy Liebman, founder of EditShare. Andy, welcome, and can you just tell us a little bit what you were doing before you were at EditShare?
Well, for about 22 years before founding EditShare, I was a documentary filmmaker. I mostly made films about science and medicine and oftentimes how those interacted with politics. You know, politicians are never the best people to make judgments about science and medicine, but, we're always trying to help them understand pretty complex issues.
So with all that documentary making, why did you come up with the idea of EditShare then?
So towards the later part of my career, getting around the year 2000, I was making many series that were multi-parts and had multiple people working on them with me. So maybe 2 or 3 different producers, 3 or 4 editors, including myself. I was the director and the writer and the producer, but I often did a lot of editing too. And so we were a large group of people who needed access to the same content, the same material. And the way we were handling that, for the most part, was just making copies of it so that everybody had the same files on their nonlinear editor. And that was extremely tedious.
And so I guess from that experience of, working with all that material, how did that really help you understand what you needed to do with an EditShare system? And how did you actually come up with the actual technology behind EditShare?
Well, so what I realized is we all needed access to the material, to the video files and audio files in a central location on a network. Right? We didn't want to be copying them onto the local computer. We wanted to have one copy of them that everybody could share. And at that time, I was principally working with Avid Media Composer. That was really the go-to editor at the late 1990s, beginning of 2000. And so I had a kind of double challenge. One was how could multiple Avid editing workstations not step on each other's toes, and the other was how could you get good performance with networked storage. And at that time, really there wasn't a good answer. Avid had their own product. It was so expensive for a small independent producer that it was just out of my range. So I started looking into Linux, and lo and behold, with Linux, I could do much better. I could do about 30 megabytes per second, and that was perfect for 25 megabit video files that I was working with at that time. It was for my offline editing, and that's what I was using. So I had to learn all about Linux, how to set it up, and I was thinking about this recently. I also had to solve this problem because Linux just really wasn't meant for video, and what it wanted to do was store up all the data that you were trying to write to the drive over the network. It wanted to store up the data in RAM and then all of a sudden write it to disk. And when it did that, which was probably very efficient, but when it did that, suddenly the video editing application would sense that it couldn't write fast enough anymore, and it would drop frames or just stop capturing. And I had to do a lot of background reading in Linux and kind of understand the little knobs that I could turn in the Linux kernel to change how data got written to drives. And I was able to solve that problem. And I thought, oh, wow, this is great. That was only the first part of the problem. That was being able to actually write data to the disks. Then there was the other problem of when I first tried to hook up 2 Avids together, 2 media composers together to the same network drive, I immediately found out that they corrupted the database. I had a very bad experience before I realized this, the night before a very important screening for a Frontline show. And my entire rough cut just got corrupted, and I had to call up the executive producer and say, I'm sorry, we have to postpone the rough cut. My experiment in shared storage has kicked me in the butt, and we have to go figure out how to recover our old cuts.
About this solving your own problems and your own editorial, how did that turn from you solving your own problems to you actually creating a company out of EditShare?
The story actually is I had a very disappointing thing happen to me in the documentary world. And I was sitting with my wife one evening at the Boston Symphony, and I told her during the intermission that this huge project that I had just been awarded about 2 weeks earlier kind of evaporated right out from underneath me. And I went from being elated to being a little bit depressed because this was a project that was going to last for 8 to 10 years. And my wife said to me, well, you know, that thing you've been working on in the basement, that you're using for the company, maybe other people want that. Maybe you should think about making a company. And I really hadn't been thinking about it at all. I was a documentary filmmaker, but we both decided that we would take the risk and try to actually turn the proof of concept into a piece of software, something that we could show at a trade show. This was about 3 months before the NAB show in Las Vegas, and we got everything together. I got my production assistants who were working on my documentaries to roll up their sleeves and help me organize the trade show. And we put 10 workstations on a plane, about 3 days before the show started. And we went out, we got a booth, like one of the last booths that you could get at the show. And we set up shop there and we decided, and of course we gave a name to the company, EditShare. And we decided to see whether anybody else was interested in what we had built for ourselves. And lo and behold, at the trade show, we had 400 visitors over the course of 4 days. In this tiny little booth that we had, there was a line like around the corner. We were the busiest booth by far at NAB, especially for our size. And we won a kind of a Best in Show award from a very influential observer of the industry who thought this was an amazing development.
I was going to ask, so who was your first customer?
So the first customer was a little company in Canada. Very interesting story. He was just starting a small post house, and he was trying to compete with some other large players, and he wanted to offer his customers an advantage of having shared storage. And he himself couldn't, he was principally oriented around Avid Media Composer at that time as well, and he couldn't afford the Avid solution either. And so he decided to take a gamble. And our system was so inexpensive. It's actually a funny story. When I went to the trade show, I didn't even know what I was going to charge for our system. I wasn't even thinking about how much it was going to cost. I knew how much the pieces cost me, and it was about 5% of what Avid was charging for their solution. And so I knew I could offer our solution at a pretty darn good price.
So then how did you go about growing the company and going from your first customers in America to something that was worldwide? What were the ways in which you started to grow it?
Well, so fortuitously, one of the people I met at that first NAB show was a dealer from the United Kingdom, and he called me up right after the show. This was Tara Montfort. He called me up right after the show, and he said, "This is great. I can sell this in the UK. The UK is dying for an economical and high-performance solution that you've built. Why don't you come over here and show it here?" the truth is the product took off best first in the UK and then in Europe because I think there was a yearning and an appreciation in Europe for something that was more economical. And then ultimately, Tara Montford became my partner because, it just made sense that we worked together and we really saw eye to eye about what the market needed.
But were there any complications then on the journey of EditShare, sort of growing up the business and working worldwide? Are there some complications, some horror stories that maybe you want to share us?
Well, there are always complications and horror stories. So I have to say, EditShare was profitable from our very first year. That's really remarkable. We didn't make a lot of profit. We didn't have a lot of sales, but we were completely self-funded, and we were able to pull ourselves up from our bootstraps. And what we did is, rather than take all the profits and put them in our pockets, we continually reinvested in the product to make it better. Really, one of the first complications we had to deal with was, as soon as our big competitor got wind of a competing solution, they got very worried and they started telling all of their dealers, oh, you better not buy that product because we're going to make the tricks that they used obsolete. And so it's never going to work, right? So we had to deal with a fairly hostile competitor out there that was trying to protect their market. Our first storage product had RAID 5. Hardware RAID 5, which was very efficient. The competing product only used mirroring, and ours was much more efficient. And they were trying to convince people that the RAID 5 was slow, it was dangerous, mirroring is the way to go. And, we always had to educate customers about the truth about safety and performance. I must say, at the time our product came on the market, Avid Media Composer was not the only game in town. By that time, professional editors were beginning to use Adobe Premiere and Apple's Final Cut Pro. Those were two other editing applications that were becoming very popular. And what we offered our customers was a solution that worked equally well with all three of those video editing applications.
So then, obviously, the company must have then grown quite a bit from those early days through to where the company is today. So what sort of motivated you? What kept you motivated to keep growing the company over the years?
So really, the motivation to keep growing the company was, I think, twofold. It was our customers. It was this strong desire to make the production environment better. We were always trying to build something that could make people's workflow smoother, more efficient, more rapid, to take away the drudgery of the work that they were doing and leave them time to make all the creative decisions. But there was a second motivation as well. You can't stay still in a technology business. You have to continually get better. You have to continually improve your product, not just for the customers, but to stay in business. I mean, ultimately, that is because of the customers. Other companies will see what you're doing, and they'll copy you. Sometimes they'll copy your website word for word and say they're doing exactly what you're doing. And, you have to stay one step ahead of them so that you are recognized as the company that is best placed to solve your customers' problems.
We're here at the National Film and Television School in the UK, one of EditShare's customers, to see how they are using it to train the next generation of filmmakers. This school was built on the site of Beaconsfield Film Studios, which was made during an era of studio construction back in the 20s. The studio was used to produce the early Wallace and Gromit films and continued to service the media industry until the mid-60s, where it would be abandoned and fall into a state of dereliction. However, it would be given a new purpose when it was acquired in 1972, transforming it into the National Film and Television School. The National Film and Television School chose EditShare because of the increasing demands that filming is putting on their storage systems, the higher data rates, the higher resolution, and the amount of footage that they're creating. Doug Shannon, the IT manager at the National Film and Television School, first met EditShare at the various media trade shows, but also found out a lot about them online. And since installing his system, EditShare have been very collaborative to work with him so that they can solve the different technical problems of running a large film studio. This collaboration between a film school and a technology vendor provides a unique opportunity to both hone the technology and the filmmakers of tomorrow. We are here with Tara Monford, co-founder of EditShare. Tara, tell us how you met Andy and why you decided to start EditShare with him.
When I joined this industry of entertainment or broadcast production, I was only digital, and I used to sell lots of different non-linear editing systems such as Avid, Adobe, Fast, Final Cut Pro from Apple. And I wanted to find a solution, and I've been looking for a few years for a collaborative storage solution. I had sold some and I had made some myself, and I went to NAB and I had a meeting with one of our suppliers, which was Avid, and at the time they had a product called LANshare, which was a network attached storage and NAS system, and it was far more cost effective, but it only gave you about 240 gigs worth of storage at the time. It doesn't seem like a lot now, and you could put a few editors onto that and you could work together, but only with Avid. So I went all the way to NAB, I paid for the ticket myself, and at the time I was working as a sales manager for a very large company in the UK selling to media companies. And Avid said no, they wouldn't open it up to Adobe Premiere or to Final Cut Pro. I thought there must be a solution out there. I just cannot believe that no one's got a solution that can work across platforms. And at the time you had Xand from Apple, and that was only for Final Cut Pro, really, and a few other things could connect into it, but you weren't collaborative. And so I was walking around the show, as you do, and I decided to go on the curtains, the smaller stands around the edge. And from a long way away, I saw, well, first of all, I think I heard all this noise. So I heard all the servers running, and this is when I first met Andy, and I just looked. I didn't actually go anywhere near him. I just looked from a distance of about 15 or 20 meters, and he had a very small stand, 4x3, and he just had lots of different editors on there, and he seemed to have some servers on there. And there was lots of people around the stand, and he had 2 people working with him, and they kept coming up to me and said, "Would you like to come down?" I said, "No, I'm okay, thanks a lot." And I had a friend there, a very technical guy called David Shapton, and I said to David, I phoned him up and said, "Look, I'll meet you at lunch, but when you get to the lower south, can you have a look at this stand? I can't even remember the number now, and have a look at it for me." So anyway, David went and have a look at that. I had to go to another meeting, and I met him at lunch. So I bought him lunch. I said, "Is it what I think it is?" And he goes, "It is." So of course I was really intrigued. So straight after lunch I walked over to the stand, see Andy really busy, and that's when I first got to meet Andy. Went through, and he couldn't talk one-on-one. He had to talk 1-on-4 or 1-on-5. So we all sat in a circle. I've never really had that before, and everyone asked their questions, and there was a lot of techie people there, and I was more from sales, as I mentioned before, and I was really intrigued. And I said, I introduced myself, Tara, and I said, "People don't normally forget my first name, and I'm going to come back. Can I come and see you tomorrow?" And I asked Andy how much this stuff costs, and he wasn't quite sure because he'd only been working with end users at the time, and he'd only actually really been starting it up. You already know the history of how he came to start it up and to solve a problem, really. And I think they're always the best products and the things that take fire when you solve a problem.
Right.
And I had a problem with my customers because they were using lots of different editing solutions and creative tools. Anyway, so I explained how distribution worked. I explained how the channel partners worked in the UK anyway. And I bought 2. I said, "I'll buy 2. I'll buy 1 to show and 1 for technical support, because I'm a great believer in you should support something that you have in-house. But I'll only do it if you come to the broadcast show, which is in June. And actually it was at Olympia that year, which is a bit unusual. So a few weeks later, so that was April, May, and it used to be in June, the broadcast show. I picked him up at the airport, and he had all these servers with him, looking back now. And he'd managed to ship over one of the servers to us a few weeks before that, so the tech teams had been playing with that. And I took him back to our office. I'd actually built a stand. Carpenter Tara had built a stand, and he helped my tech teams to understand it at the time. And then I drove him to Olympia, and we set it all up. He could only stay half a day because he had to go to Italy to another partner, and he had a server for them as well. And it was very slow business for about 6 months. But I did know a lot of people because I've been selling in this marketplace up to that point for about 7 or 8 years, 9 years. And then suddenly we met a few people. They couldn't believe it was doing what it was doing. Then we started to sell it, we set up a channel partnerships. And there's also my ex-business partner, James, as well. So James is very involved in this as well. And we wanted to make things. So we started to do the ingest and the MAM side of the business. Then we bought companies that gave us more newsroom focus and reality TV focus and an editor at the time. And we just grew the business through hard work and through our customers. And our customers really enjoyed working with EditShare. We were very easy to use, which was not normal back in the day, yes? We were very quick to set up. And yeah, that's how I met Andy. I can tell you the rest of the story on chapter 16.
So with that background, what do you do at EditShare today?
What do I do at EditShare today? So I talk to our clients and wannabe clients and our partnerships, and I work with the team. So my role today is Executive Vice President of Business Development. So today I help put EditShare's foot forward and put the message out there, and we've grown part of the growth team under Parker Gale, which acquired the company in 2019. And
So who are some examples of the people who would buy EditShare today, and where are they located?
yeah, well, they're located on planet Earth, yeah, which is a good thing. Some do go to space. We do get footage back from space, but our clients are really broad spectrum. But I will say there's been an insatiable explosion or appetite for our solutions. You talk about clients, lots of tier one clients, broadcasters such as BBC has used us in Doctor Who's in the past. We go into corporate, British Petroleum, HSBC in the past. You go today, the reality TV shows like Love Island, Big Brother. And we have secret squirrel companies, not companies actually, government organisations use us for all the media that they bring in. And then you have news, repurposing of that news, and then you have all the streamers.
So what would you say are some of EditShare's strengths as a business or as the technology?
It's very easy to use, it works, very cost effective, but I think everyone says those things, don't they? We believe in technical support because we are in this complex post-production, so a lot of our technical teams have worked in the industry. They understand the editing tools, and they also understand how to use EditShare and the amount of media. I mean, we have some systems that are petabyte of media, so you can have millions of assets in those, and that's a lot of material. So if there's something that goes wrong, you want to have a high level of technical support, or people actually understand that. And it's not IT support only. I think it's much more creative than that.
Right. So how did EditShare cope with the pandemic then?
That was, yeah, we're all still coping with the pandemic, I think. As I mentioned before, Parker Gale, private equity company based in Chicago, they acquired us in 2019, and less than a year later we go into March, we go into lockdowns around the world. But it was tough, don't get me wrong. A lot of our customers, I'll give you an example, in Africa we were about to do a large install for numerous Lionsgate films, and they couldn't fly their crews in there. So these things all got delayed. But what we also found out is that the stronger companies, especially the streaming companies, they were investing at that time heavily. So we were very fortunate to have solutions that we were putting into global streaming companies.
So can you describe now, what are you doing now with EditShare and beyond EditShare?
After having sold EditShare, my time came to move on to something else after 16 years. of involvement in a technology company. I'm a firm believer that we don't live to work, we work to live. As much as it's important to enjoy your work, I think there are other things that one should leave time to do in life. And so, I very happily sold EditShare when we had grown to about 110 people and put it in the hands of a group of investors that could grow it to the next level. And so now that has given me time to pursue some other interests that are very important to me. I've always wanted to make wine. And so my wife and I are making a small amount of wine at our home in Spain. We are doing it for the fun of it. It's not a commercial venture. It's just for the joy of learning how to do it and do it well. And we've had 2 great harvests so far. I now have time to spend with my family. I get to spend time with my parents who are getting up to their 90s, and it's really great to have time to spend with them. If not now, when, and get the time to spend with my kids and my wife and all of my friends. So many things that I neglected for many years as I was working very hard, I now have no excuse.
So you've had many years of working in technology and, actually using video for many years. What do you think maybe the future of video production might look like?
The future of video production is for sure going to be interesting. I think it has been a huge liberator that the COVID-19 pandemic has forced a transition to working remotely. Of course, AI, artificial intelligence, is having a huge impact on production already. It's being used to make suggestions about scripts. It's being used to help pick out the most exciting moments in your rushes. It's being used to do automatic logging. And I think ultimately, I think AI is going to be ever more involved in the editing process. I'm not sure I like that, but I think it is going to happen increasingly because it's too efficient. And I think we have to be very careful about letting AI decide what stories we tell and how we tell those stories. So I think that's a change that's coming, and I think we have to be very careful to guard against it. I think we have to make sure our tools can get the benefits of AI without letting it run over us.
Thank you for joining us on our exploration of collaboration with EditShare. Special thanks to Andy Liebman, Tara Monford, and Doug Shannon for being part of this journey. Remember, there is always something beyond the screen, making film and TV possible.